Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Just going to give a couple seconds for people to file in before we officially kick things off.
Ew.
All right. Good afternoon again, and thank you so much for joining today's Wednesday Wise webinar. My name is Sydney Konihia with the International Franchise Association, and we have a great 60 minutes lined up for you today. Before we get started, just wanted to touch on a couple things. Today's webinar will be recorded, and a link to the recording, along with a copy of the slide deck, will be emailed out to everyone this afternoon. If you have any questions for today's speakers, please feel free to add them to the chat or questions box. Today's topic is From Permission to Partnership, the Elite Playbook to Building Franchisee Trust and Adoption, and is brought to us by Qvinci Software. Here to provide today's discussion are Brad Adams, President, CEO, and Chairman of Qvinci Software, and Ben Pace, CFO of Floor Coverings International. Thank you both so much for joining us, and thank you again to Qvinci Software for sponsoring today's Wednesday Wise webinar. I will now turn things over to you guys to get us started.
Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate it. And thank you to our entire audience for today's webinar. And it's all about from permission to partnership. It's really about building a playbook to build that franchisee trust and adoption. And and we're going to go through this today with our guest. And we're going to try to do three things today. We're going to try to sort of reframe the power dynamics, viewing location data as shared capital, not control. Reduce franchisor friction, and make it comfortable to ask for location data because its value is obvious. And create that push-pull paradigm to create the collaborative effort between the two. We're going to go into that a little bit more with our guest. Our goal is to leave the audience thinking, why would I not do this? So Ben has already been introduced, but I'm going to give Ben a chance to introduce and give a little something about his company.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Ben Pace, Floor Coverings International. I've been the CFO since 2020. Here, got to start about a month before everything got weird. So we had to learn a lot of processes as we were coming in for things that we were doing in person that we had to remove to be more remote. So, and we've taken those processes. One of those things was taking things from being more of a hands-on financial process to more of a automated financial process. And that's one of the reasons we partnered with Qvinci in the first place, was so that we could get better data and get it real time. So it's been a cool journey, and I'm really excited to kind of talk about what we did and kind of how it works, and work with Brad on this to kind of give you a better idea of what Qvinci does and how it can help your business.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. We're going to go over the agenda real quick and then dive right in. We're going to go over some learning objectives. We're going to talk about why this is critically important. We're going to talk about the critical parts of a great franchise performance management solution. We're going to talk about the tools that make it happen, the three final must-haves. Then we'll recap next steps in Q&A. So with that, our learning objectives. First of all, we want to create franchisee demand. We want franchisees to crave the insight because they will do it if they're winning. We want to normalize transparency between the franchisee and the franchisor. How safe, standardized data removes fear and defensiveness. We want to reduce franchisor effort. We want to make it simple, okay? Automation replaces chasing around reminders and enforcements. We want to turn insight into momentum, okay? Benchmarking, for example, fuels curiosity and competition. And most importantly, we want to build a collaborative coaching environment and where we align the franchisor and the franchisee with the same facts, the same truth. Okay, before we jump into this thing, why don't we look at polling question number 1, Sydney? Which is, how do franchises in your system currently view financial data sharing? A required compliance activity, a necessary but low-value task, a helpful but inconsistent tool, or a competitive advantage they actively use? Please choose one. Okay. All right, I think we could close that poll up, Sydney. Yeah, interesting data. It's over here on another screen of mine, but required compliance, 28%, necessary but low value, 33%, helpful but inconsistent. So, only 11% said they use it as a strategic advantage. So, Ben, I think we have an audience that's ripe for learning today. So, a great poll. So, let's take the next step here and talk about why is this so critically important, okay? And, we want to talk about franchisors and franchisees. We want to look at the same issues, the same data. Everybody's got rising costs, tighter margins, less tolerance for admin work. So the old model of send us your data on a PDF or a Word document or a spreadsheet, that doesn't work. It doesn't scale. So how are we going to fix that? We're going to fix that by talking about, collaboration over compliance, effortless leadership, behavioral economics, a trust architecture, and scaling simplicity, where everyone wants to do this, okay? And it not only do they want to do it, it benefits them, okay? So let's talk about the three pillars of profitably scaling franchise growth, and we're going to bring Ben in here to talk about it. Qvinci did I think it was 500 or 600 franchisors, a market survey a year or two ago, and these were the three pillars of profitably scaling franchise growth: franchise financial insights and data consolidation. And Ben, you talked about that earlier about the data, and which is the foundational pillar. Then the franchise financial owner coaching for performance, and brand compliance and expansion. Okay, so we like to consider these as the three pillars of that franchise financial performance. So Ben, let me bring you in here and talk a little bit about your take on the three pillars and how do they relate to your business.
Yeah, when I started in 2020, one of the things that we had about 125 franchisees, and now we have close to 300, right? So what we were doing back then wasn't going to be scalable to where we are now. And part of the reason we went with Qvinci in the first place was because when we look at the data we were going to gather, it had to be something we could get fairly quickly and then be able to interpret. But we also had that compliance function of we needed to get data by the agreements and we needed to make it make sense in terms of what we were using to coach with. So all those three things fit together for us. But the most important part about why it all works together is because the franchisees know we're going to actually use it for coaching. That's what they care about the most. Because if it's just a compliance function, you're getting just what you're getting, compliance. But when you're using it for coaching, you can actually bring them along and they want to be actively involved.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And to follow up on that point, we found that, when data is avoided, it's everyone pays. It's not just the franchisor or the franchisee. I mean, and the results show in slow coaching, inconsistent performance, and a real possibility of guesswork decisions. Okay, avoidance doesn't mean like a person doesn't care. It may mean that we haven't done a good job explaining to them the benefit of it. So, Ben, I'd like you to talk about would you agree with that statement and how you at Floor Coverings have overcome the avoidance issue of sharing data?
Yeah, it's a problem because franchisees inherently, especially the ones that aren't doing well, are reluctant to want to show that off, right? So one of the things that Qvinci's helped us with is we know the data, we can see it at a franchisor level, but a lot of times when we want people to get into groups, we require them to sign off on agreements that they're going to share data, right? So to be in a momentum group, which is our peer-to-peer group, that's where we get a lot of resources. Getting them to want to be in those because they know that's where the resources are. Financial performance and financial reporting is a big requirement of that, because otherwise, how are we going to figure out how to guide you, right? And getting them that kind of buy-in because they know they're going to get more than just regular coaching creates a good opportunity for them.
That's great, Ben. Thank you. Now let's take a look at, we call this the operational problem that must be solved by franchisors for a really solid franchise performance management solution. And it's as this picture shows. It's a bunch of stakeholders, a bunch of different accounting software, QBO, QBD, third-party hosted, and a bunch of franchisees. Okay. And, you need to have a solution that sort of brings all that stuff together and gives you the ability to collect the data and communicate to these stakeholders. And Ben, talk a little bit about how floor coverings handled this operational problem before and after Qvinci.
Yeah, before it was done by spreadsheets, which is always, as any accountant or anybody in the finance world knows, that's fine. And when you're like I said, location 1 to 100, you can probably get away with that. As you scale up to the hundreds to the thousands, that's impossible, right? You're not going to be able to do it. So Qvinci in our world, when we got people on it at the time, again 2020, a lot of people were on desktop. Right. And so being able to support desktop and online, which it does right now, we have people on several. And one of the things I like about it is that on my dashboarding, I can see which version they're on in Qvinci. So we know who we got to convert. But for those of you who don't know, QuickBooks themselves is doing away with desktop as a general rule. So everybody's going to be on QBO by force, essentially, in the next 2 years anyway, if they're not already. So that kind of makes things a little bit easier for us to get more alignment from all the different people into one place, and using Qvinci as the place we all gather that stuff together.
Well, great, and thank you very much. The second issue we talk about in this why, in answering the why, is we call this a traditional financials problem, but it can be boiled down into most franchisees aren't finance guys. They don't manage to a P&L like in big business. And they're not really interested in learning. They have they're HVAC people. They're floor covering people. They're small business people. But what everyone does understand is green is good and red we got to talk. And if you can focus, and we're going to go over some of those KPI scorecards and other business intelligence with the red-green paradigm here in a minute. So, Ben, why don't you talk about how Floor Coverings International handled this problem of traditional financials, or understanding traditional financials before and after Qvinci?
Yeah, it's truly an educational issue, right? Because you have to have 3 different steps to it, really. The buy-in part of it is the first step, because if they don't care, there's no point, right? Again, it's a compliance function. Once they get the buy-in, being able to understand good and bad becomes easier when you have the green-red idea behind things, because again, that's basic understanding of finance, and that's all many owners need. Hey, above this, you're good. Below this, you're not. Right. That's where you can start. And then from there, as you begin to develop them, getting more savvy with things like your gross margins, being able to figure out what your common yields are, being able to figure out what your marketing and staff spends are, you can dig into a few categories, and it makes it very easy to then point to those, even if it's 2 or 3 things, and really draw attention to those financial KPIs that matter. You don't have to make everything important. You just need to make the red and green things that are truly important out in front.
Well, I think that's a great point. And the next slide we're going to look at it, we call it the push-pull paradigm, okay? And it really means is using Qvinci business intelligence and the red-green indicators to, like, for example, the KPI scorecard we're going to go over in a minute will help catalyze a collaborative conversation from the push side of the push-pull paradigm. And the advisory portal, for example, will help catalyze collaborative conversations from the pull side. You push the franchisee into collaborating, you pull the franchisee into collaboration, and both of those together is a win-win because they both see it. And talk a little bit about your experience in this area.
Yeah, financial reviews are not something anybody gets excited about, really. I think it's when you talk to franchisees about it, they don't necessarily understand that you're not auditing them, or that you're not actually after something to try to figure out if they're, you're screwing them on sales, which is a lot of times what they think. When you start drawing their attention instead of the top line to the other lines, and especially the bottom line as the primary, that's where you pull them in. Right. It's the idea behind, we actually care about your profitability. And when you're red here, we're not happy. And I know you're not. And when you're green here, we can talk about how to make you more green. money and on top. So like they get behind that. That pulls them in instead of us shoving the idea to them about why financials are important.
Yeah, well, thank Ben. It's so important. I mean, back in COVID, the green and red thing really started to come to at Qvinci in our business intelligence, and now all of our business intelligence has it because it's so easy. Find red, fix red. So
Yep.
let's go to polling question number 2, Sydney, and then we'll jump into the next section of the discussion. Polling question number 2. What's the biggest barrier to franchisee engagement with performance data and metrics today? Fear of transparency or comparison? Too much manual effort required? Financial insights from data leaks? When data lacks clarity or actionability? Or lack of trust in the numbers or the process? This is a good second question because it kind of digs into the why. And so sort of interesting numbers there. About 40% of fear of transparency, 27% too much manual effort, 13% financial insights, lacks data clarity. So I think it fits along with the first question, and hopefully we can educate everyone today. And you can go ahead and close that up, Sydney. Interesting answers. Let me close this here. All right. Next, we're going to go into section 2, the critical parts of a great franchise performance management solution, which is the data, role-based actionable insights, and ease of use. Okay. The first one is role-based insights. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because franchisors need standardized comparable data. And so, Ben, I'd like you to weigh in here and talk about the practical application of having access to timely and reliable franchise location data.
Yeah, I mean, without good data, the whole thing falls apart, right? If you're waiting 15 to 30 days to figure out where you are, you're actually falling behind on being able to do anything to affect the rest of the year, right? So when they enter something into our sync system for Qvinci, we know that day, right? And then one of the cool things that we've done in our world is we've also got the API loaded into our reporting stuff for Power BI. So it updates it every morning at 3 a.m. So everything that's happened, we get to roll in on a day-by-day basis. So we get constant updates of what's going on in their financial data and their KPI data, which makes a huge difference for us to be nimble and then get to them sooner if something's going wrong.
Yeah, too. And maybe also talk about how this is not doable with the manual processes. You got to have a technology to get this done like Qvinci.
Yeah, I mean, if you try to do everything with just getting them to get over reports, you can set a deadline all you want to, but they're going to send in things when they send in things. And then you have to have someone sit there and aggregate it as a full-time job. So if you want to have someone be your solo aggregator of every single source of data, again, that may work for about 100 franchisees. Once you start scaling, it's not going to work anymore. And so having that actual technology piece, just like any other form of automation, when you do it with your job, you can see the ease of getting that data in faster. And frankly, it becomes an advantage for you in being able to actually coach your people and gives you a leg up by having that automation on your financials.
Okay, great. The second thing we're going to talk about is the role-based actionable insights. Raw data is not enough. Stakeholders at different levels like to see different things. So, Ben, I'd like you to talk about how you and Floor Coverings have used role-based actionable insights to benefit both the franchisor and the franchisee.
Yeah, as an example, I'm going to want to see everything, right? I'm a CFO, so I can go through and look at individual KPIs and individual accounts, even being able to move stuff around, being able to set up the chart of accounts, being able to look at when someone's not mapped correctly. I have all of that access at my level, right? That's something I would need. I don't want my coaches to have that access. I don't need them to have that access. So layers down from there, they can see everything, but maybe they're not moving around the chart of accounts, right? Because they're not sophisticated enough. And then layers down from there, we have the franchisees who maybe I don't want focused on every single account. I want them focused on the roll-ups, the aggregate accounts that they can look at so that they're focused on maybe 5 or 6 things instead of sitting there going, well, I wonder what my truck expense was. Like, nobody cares. That's not the point of what I'm looking at. We want you looking at your marketing. We want you looking at your people. We want you looking at your overall take home. We want you looking at your margin. right? Because those are the major movers in the franchise, right? For what we do. That's a big part of every line item that rolls up to what your total expense is. The other stuff is moving points here or there, but having them focus on what the truly important top stuff is, that makes it easier for them not to get lost in the weeds.
Yeah. And you can do the same thing for franchisees. You can determine what they see and what they look at as well.
Yep.
So
And we do.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's customizable to that point, which is what makes it unique. I don't have to set one user setting for one particular thing. I get to choose what they want to look at, which makes it important for the kind of businesses that may be different than ours.
And the third area in this section, what makes a great franchise performance management solution, is ease of use and automation. And why does this matter? Well, most people aren't analysts. They need us. If the system is complicated, it's going to fail. One of the taglines, Ben, we used early on is, we're Oracle for small business. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're ERP like for small business, and so I'd like you to talk about how easy it was for you and Floor Covering to implement Qvinci when you got there.
Yeah, it was going to be a bigger lift than I thought it was going to be. And then when I actually got into it, I was surprised at how easy it was to set up people to get syncing. One of the things that I thought was going to be difficult is getting everybody on board and getting an integration in place, And in reality, it's literally just sending a support email out to have them hook up with somebody at Qvinci to then load up the sync on their computer. And it takes about 5 minutes. And then it resets it to do it automatically day by day. So in the beginning, I don't know if Brad, you'll remember this. There wasn't always an automatic function that was on. They would have to push a button earlier sometimes in the process. Yeah, and now it's fully got to the point where they just set it and it'll start automatically updating. And one of the cool things we see is on my dashboard, I can have a sync list that tells me the last time someone synced, how long it's been since that sync, the current date, and whether or not they're currently syncing today. So if there's something off, I can go back and contact them to get it hooked up again.
Yeah, that's a great feature, which we're going to show you in a minute on the dashboard. So let's go to polling question number 3, and then we'll go to the next section, which is going to be our demo or reviewing some reports. How automated is your current franchise location data collection and consolidation process? Fully automated with standardized reporting, partially automated, still manual steps, mostly manual, upload spreadsheets and emails, and not automated at all. Let's see. Okay. It looks like B, partially automated, still manual steps, is almost 60%. Mostly manual, about 27%. And I think it's 5% fully automated. So, I mean, the topics that we're talking today are quite relevant for our audience, who are all franchisors. So let's continue on. Interesting results. Thank you, Cindy. You can go ahead and close that. There we go. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go through 8 reports, business intelligence reports, and we're going to discuss each one of them. Okay. And we'll go through them one at a time. And I'll ask Ben to comment on them. Mm-hmm. And remember, everyone's going to get a copy of this deck, and they have all this stuff here with links to schedule a demo with Qvinci people. It'll be very easy. So the first thing is our franchise wellness dashboard. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's the starting point where you land in Qvinci. And Ben, you just mentioned the reporting data ready month feature and the last sync date a minute ago. So yep. Why don't you talk about how a franchise, how do you use this tool, and how do you think it's relevant for other franchises?
Yeah, so I think this is, as you said, this is the beginner. This is the table stakes, right? When you're going to go into anything that you're going to want to look at from a franchisor perspective, this is the starting point. And to me, what this is this points out where your data is good or where your data is bad. Meaning, I'm looking at it not necessarily to try to make analysis decisions. What I'm looking for here is you'll see certain things when you go through here that are red or green that look completely out of whack. and or a sync date's behind. So to me, this is my point where I look through from a wellness standpoint, and I look at it and see, are you syncing correctly? Is your accounting good? Are your books clean? I use it to figure out where we need to engage with people on the data component of the business.
Yeah, that's great. And, and up at the top here, it's got reporting physical year to date, same period. It's got 5 different periods: month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. And one of the interesting things about this thing is, if you see it, it's the red green paradigm that we talked about earlier. When you see a red, like your top 10 expenses, -16, well, you can click that button and it'll open up a scorecard. And then you click that button, it opens up the underlying report that data comes from if you want to investigate it. But it's a great starting point for us to look at. And the next thing we do is the KPI scorecard, which is our most popular business intelligence tool, because it basically has everything in there. And, Ben, why don't you talk about how you use the KPI scorecard at Floor Coverings and how it's helped you manage your locations?
Yeah, this is where the juice is, right? This is where you're going to get what you want for a coaching standpoint. One of the biggest things we've seen a shift in our franchisees is understanding benchmarking, and the benchmarking comes from understanding their KPIs, right? So when you're looking at how you're going to compare them, you want to take these reports and use them to show like, hey, what should your business look like comparative to the rest of the network? You're also going to want to look at it from the standpoint of how are your financials playing out on all these different line items so that you're not falling behind or you're not overspending in an area that's costing you on the bottom line. At the end of the day, this takes a little bit of education, right? Because a franchisee can get overwhelmed by the amount of information that comes at them. What I would tell you is, as you bring these kind of things in, you want to explain why you're doing it in the first. Again, always go to why. Start with why when it comes, because if you come into this and just throw data at them, they're going to get really confused and shut down. If you tell them why, hey, we're going to go through stuff, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, it's to improve your KPIs, and your KPIs improve the money in your pocket. They get aligned very quickly, and that's one of the best parts about this.
Thank you very much. And thanks, James Dorset, for the nice comment left in the chat there. He used to use it at his former company, and it was fantastic. So we got a fan. But the real big thing about this KPI scorecard, it all follows the green. The green is good. Red, we got to talk. Find red, fix red. One of the things our founder, Charles Nagel, who invented Qvinci, still with us today, wanted to do was make this so simple that the franchisee didn't have to do a lot of calculations. Okay, here, trending negative. Owner's salary. Okay, let me go take a look at that. So interesting. This is our number one tool, and Ben uses it as well. All right, the second tool we're going to go to is our ranking and benchmarking analysis. It is exactly what it is: ranking and benchmarking. So without going into too much, I would like to ask Ben to talk about the benefits of benchmarking and ranking and how he has used that analysis to help his coaches franchisees for performance.
Yep. I just got back from convention for our company. We spent about a week in Mexico, which feel bad for me. But while I was there, one of the things we do, we have 2 different groups at the top end of our group. We have a top 10% group. We have a top 20% group, right? And they care intensely about this. This is where you can really move. You can move the middle with this a little bit. It helps some, but where I will tell you where the juice is with this is with your top performers, because when you start to rank them out and you start to benchmark them against what's possible, your number 1 guy feels great. He always feels great. He knows you're number 1 guy. Your number 10 guy is going to want to go chase him. And getting your 10 guy up to where your number 1 guy is, and a lot of franchisee networks can make you a lot on system-wide sale and really drive the numbers up. So giving that to the 20% group and creating some FOMO for us around where they rank really gives us some good movement in their financials, because again, it's about their bottom line. And if their bottom line gets better, they invest more into the business to grow it or to acquire other units that will grow it.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the ranking and benchmarking is not only good for coaching for performance, it's good for brand expansion.
Absolutely. Because what they want to do is here's the other thing they do with it. By the way, I found this out. They look to see it to who's at the bottom to target to go buy them.
Right.
They suddenly want to see who's the next person to go pick off, because that's where acquisitions come from. They can see the data and then want to go get somebody.
Yeah, listen, there's nothing like competition. So, and I want to just point out the fact that, this report that's in your library, that all you have to do, open it up, is not possible without the pillar one, the Qvinci data engine. Okay.
Yep.
I met with a guy yesterday, 2 days ago, who said that if he had to go through each one of his units reports, it'd take him a day, a unit to do this. And I'm going like, you got 150. I mean, that's a half a year. So this tool is great, but the greater point is the data in the background that's there every night to get there. So the third report we're going to talk about today in our system here is the break even and what if analysis. Yep. And Ben, I'd like you to. I mean, it's a simple break even analysis, and then lets you do a what if. Talk a little bit about how you use this, and how does it help you build that collaborative relationship with your franchisees?
Yeah, when we do our financial reviews, this is something that really I didn't think they would respond to as much as they have. Really, what we've seen, the what if analysis especially, has been really eye opening for them. What we've done with this is we've taken the report, and again, when I was talking about the API, we do some stuff in Power BI with it as well. We brought in some of our KPIs that are operational too, and what we can do is flick the levers a little bit to figure out how it's going to affect the different pieces of the individual what ifs as well. I find it to be incredibly valuable from a financial standpoint and an operational standpoint to be able to do them both together. Because then they can see like what the effect on, close rate does to their gross margin. They can see what the effect of gross margin does on their overall profitability. They can see what changing their marketing percentage does. They can see what better KPIs does to that marketing percentage. Being able to move those levers for them creates that aha moment that, oh my God, if I can just do a couple of things in my business, my profitability goes way up. Which you think would be, as a financial guy, I think that would be obvious. But the more and more I'm sure you know this as franchisors, the more and more you deal with franchisees that aren't financially savvy, sometimes we take for granted things that we would consider to be obvious, but those aha moments really move the business and their growth because they're getting more money at the end of the day. And they choose to invest when they're making more.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one of the things when we built this tool, when we built our other what if tools, we thought large swags or large decisions doesn't really move the needle. You need to be able to go in account by account and make incremental changes, and then see what happens. And because guesswork leads to bad decisions, I think. So a great analysis of that break even tool, Ben. All right, the next tool we're going to go after is our entities at risk versus high performer report. And this is exactly what it says. Throughout your entire ecosystem, you set forth the categories that are important to you. I think you can put as much as 7 in there. And then you decide who is either at risk or a high performer based upon those categories. And we can do both as dollars and as a percent of income. Yep. In fact, most of our reports can do that. So, Ben, I'd like you to talk about how this tool can help you find out about at-risk locations before it's too late, and maybe help some of those high performers scale the brand like we talked about a minute ago.
Yep. So this is a newer one for us. This one wasn't as important until 2025. We weren't really having a lot of at-risk stuff come up because, again, we were collecting data and we were working more on driving up growth. And then we started to figure out why some of our franchisees were terminating out, or were having issues where they were failing, was because of specifically stuff around their financials. And so as we started using this, really the one we use the most is gross margin, really, where we can start to figure out that your gross margin starts to tank very early. If you're not at benchmark level or above, and we know what our floor is to be able to walk in there, anybody below that floor is not going to survive. We just know it because the unit economics just don't make sense. So that's our primary one. But then we also do staff cost and marketing, because if your marketing starts to shoot up as a percentage, it usually means you're spending money on something and you're just not getting any return on it. And that's another reason to jump in and try to find if we have people at risk. On the reverse side, from the high performer side, we use more of the benchmarking than this report, but I see the advantage of it if I was going to try to also pick it up. However, I see the advantage for me at risk to reduce termination or to reduce bankruptcy in a unit.
Yeah. Well, that's great. We this is one of our newer reports in our business intelligence tools, and it's people love it. I asked some guy asked me to explain to it, and I said, the way I look at this is kind of like that theoretical best 18 on your handicap scorecard in golf.
Yep.
You could develop a theoretical best franchisee from this data, and help you maybe do some stretch goals and budgeting and things like that. Or like you said earlier, find out some of the high performers. You could use the data to sell more locations. So that's a great tool. And let's go now to the performance dashboard, which is another tool that we have, and talk a little bit about how you've used this role-based insight, like the performance dashboard, to benefit the franchisor and the franchisee.
Yeah, I mean, per unit, you can go in and figure out what you're seeing in terms of lifts for the month, or you can compare. Doing the prior month analysis is really a big deal, because then you can kind of see where you're seeing fluctuations, or you can see where we should be leading somebody that's maybe having cash flow problems. Again, if you're seeing dips in AR, but you're not seeing corresponding lifts in sales, if you're seeing expenses go up, but you're not seeing incomes go up, like, you can do relative things with this that you can very quickly at a glance run through with a franchisee. It's a good trending tool. Which is something I think most of us know franchisees don't necessarily think about, at least in the construction world. My goodness, they don't think about the next 2 months, let alone what's going to happen in the next year. So it's good to keep their focus on kind of how things are trending, so they can especially protect cash flow.
Yeah. This is a great tool, and we have a couple more to go over, but I wanted to stop and talk about all of these business intelligence tools can be put into packages and sent to either a franchisor executive or a franchisee. So, and I know I'm going to repeat myself a couple of times, but this is not a report that can be done without the Qvinci data in the background that we talked about earlier. The collection, consolidation, mapping of the location data into a standard chart of account. This makes it all possible. You show up, you open your account, you open it up, and it's right there. So I just want to make that point again, because it is an important point. Everybody has a spreadsheet, everybody has dashboards, but it's really the data behind it that makes it important. So now let's look at the next tool that we could use in our group, which is our new Qvinci budgeting tools. Okay. And this is basically a budget versus actual year-over-year comparison with a future fiscal budget. And Ben, talk about how you use budgeting tools at floor covering and help keeping your franchisees, help them establish a budget and follow through with good, solid business decisions.
Yeah, this is essentially our business planning function, right? We want them to come in and be able to set their entire year, especially coming into like this year, 2026, so that they know what the budget is for them to be able to perform. And a lot of that comes with assumptions of what they're going to do on the top line and how that's going to play versus the year. Without being able to update it on a month by month basis to look at actual versus variance, they really don't have any idea how they're performing. They're basing it on, okay, well, I wanted to be at 3 million this year and I'm only at, 600,000 through February. I guess that's good. They don't know, right? Because there's no way to track the underlying, how that's flowing down to the bottom line for them. This tool will then help them figure out like, oh, like, hey, I did 600,000, but wait a minute, I'm spending more on my people than I thought I was because construction doesn't really, pick back up until March. So maybe their overhead's a little heavy in one area, and it shows them the seasonality of the business. Again, what's the importance of that? It's to figure out not only the profitability, but to watch the cash flow as they go through things with the budget and how they're going to affect the rest of the year, so they don't have cash go short on.
That's a great, budget tools are a great tool to use. And the other one we have is our actual plus budget forecasting, or excuse me, actual plus budget forecasting. Talk a little bit about using the budget v actual in helping your franchisees manage their business.
Yep. This is something we use in our groups. Again, this is not something that everybody does at every level, right? This is going to be your best users because a lot of people don't really get to the point where they're trending. This is something that I would want everybody to do, but financial savvy people will go, or non-financial people will just go, and I'm worried about it. I'm only worrying about this month, right? So as you move people into our momentum groups, we move people into thinking this way because we want to see where they're on or off target for the end of the year. We always want to draw their attention to, hey, when you're looking at the end of the year and you want to hit that target, you've got to hit that target in March, you got to hit that target in April, or you've got to make it up somewhere. So showing them where they're off and how much they have to make up on the budget gives them the incentive to then maybe hire that next person, maybe not hire that next person, maybe figuring out where they need to be effectively moving their marketing. Maybe their marketing needs to be shifted because it's not landing the ROI they want. These are important factors to look at the year, and it really helps them galvanize what they want to try to make on the bottom line.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. A great explanation of that. Sydney, let's look at polling question number 4. Pull that one up. Which outcome would have the greatest impact on your franchise system? Franchisees requesting insights instead of avoiding them? Faster, more effective coaching conversations? Higher franchisee adoption with less franchisor effort? All the above. And all these polling questions kind of tie into each other. So it's really going to be interesting to see the answers to that. Well, right now we're at 80% of all of the above. Okay. So that pretty much lays it out there that the vast majority of this audience would want franchise insights, want their franchisees requesting these insights and get faster coaching conversation. And there's a tool that can help you do it, and that's Qvinci. So great answers. You can go ahead and wrap that one up. Okay. All right. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the 3 final must-haves. We talked about the why. We talked about what made a great franchise financial performance solution. We talked about the tools that help you get there, and with great explanations from Ben Pace of Floor Coverage International. Now we're going to talk about, the 3 final must-haves for a franchise financial performance management solution. You have to have it. Which are training and support programs, scalability and customization, and industry trust. Okay, that you got to have those 3. So let's take a look at the first one: training and support programs. And software alone isn't going to drive change. Okay, franchisees, they need help interpreting data and taking action. So you got to have some key capabilities that will help them do it. And the key 3 pillars are the data, coaching for performance, brand compliance, and expansion. The 3 pillars we went over earlier. And Ben, I'm going to bring you in. Why don't you talk about your experience with the training and support team at Qvinci and how they helped you or made life easy?
Yeah, I mean, it came down to training the trainer for us, right? Because having the ability to have our people understand how Qvinci works and being able to bring it to the franchisees, I don't expect them to pick up on it like everybody else does, but I do expect our coaches to be able to lead it. And so having that training for them to be then able to take it forward for the financial reviews is huge. So that's number 1. Number 2, the support factor of having our franchisees being able to just go to support, have them set up something and be ready to roll with a sync or fix a syncing issue in less than 5 minutes. That's a massive thing, because otherwise it could take, getting an IT ticket in and waiting forever, and maybe someone fixes it and going to the, and that's not what happens. It's very, very clear. It's very, very simple. And it's, whenever someone complains about it, I'm like, guys, did you just send an email and set up like a 5-minute meeting to do it? And then they get all like, I guess I forgot to do that. And I'm like, yeah, she did, because otherwise I would know it would be done. It's so easy. So yeah, it's been good.
Well, we're going the exact opposite of the market today. Most people in the market are outsourcing or offshoring their customer success department. We're doing exactly the opposite. We're only hiring professionals and people who are knowledgeable about the products they sell. Our entire customer success and account management team in Austin, Texas, these are all professionals. They're there to solve our customers' problems. And I hear it all the time. All of our competitors, they're offshoring all this stuff and phone banks and chat rooms. We have live people who know what they're talking about, because, if I can help save you time, that's going to make Qvinci all the more better for you and your people. I don't understand that. One of the other things we just came out with, Ben, is some service bundles. They probably won't go for a large organization like yours, but for smaller organizations that don't have the people, we're creating service bundles to help them do it. Coaching bundles, things like that, to help them when they don't have the manpower a company like yours has. So that very interesting. The next thing is scalability and customization. Okay. One of Qvinci's key differentiators is it's ultimately customizable. Everything you saw today is built for you in the library. We have 280 of these things in our library, reports and business intelligence. They're all usable as is or customizable if you need to customize them. Okay. And that's a big thing for us, scalability and customization. So, Ben, talk about how how Qvinci has helped floor covering scale, and how, if you've used any of the customizable features, and how's that worked?
Yeah, I think for us, when we were originally doing this, when we started with, like I said, that right around 100, 120 units, there were a couple things. One, we didn't really understand what our standard chart was going to be. So we were kind of still operating with the idea of like, well, what should we put in and where should we put these things? So being able to adjust that and being able to remap things and being able to usher up new standard charts of accounts when we need to is huge, because then, things change, times change, different accounts come in, you need to be able to do that. Changing how we looked at KPIs and benchmarks. You don't do that as much when you're smaller, because again, maybe your KPIs kind of stink. But as you get bigger, you kind of notice that, like, as people grow and you begin to get some stratification in your network, it's really good to show the top, the middle, and the bottom so that they can figure out what your role model, your standard, and your floor looks like, right? So being able to pick out those benchmarks, being able to report to them what's going on. And frankly, the biggest thing for me on this was just doing the actual financial reviews. So many people don't do them. And when you don't do them, you're sending a subtle message to your franchise network as you're growing that you don't actually care that they're making money or not. And if you go out of the way to actually put some effort behind this, I hired an FP&A guy who does this. That's all he does. He does this Qvinci work. He rolls out profitability. He's my director of profitability. I can't tell you how many people at convention came up to me as a bigger organization now and told me, this is easily the best hire you've ever made. This has helped my business so much. This has made a huge deal in how I look at what's going on. I now feel like I can make money. It matters and changes their lives, right? As you scale. And you can't have franchisees scale if they're not making money. It just won't work. So it's massive.
Well, thank you very much. The whole point of Qvinci, we have franchisees from, I think our smallest is 4 and our largest is 5,000, and all in between, numbers in between. So Qvinci is infinitely scalable because of our patented technology. you link and sync these accounts. And once you get them linked and synced and get your mapping done and your whitelist done, it's pretty much automatic in terms of the data and then the reporting as well. And if something breaks or gets unmapped, we fix it and then teach you how to fix it. It's very simple. But scalability and customization are very, very important to us, because a lot of what we hear, two of the main things we've heard, Ben, was about in franchises is franchisor level of effort and franchisee adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And we're tackling the franchisee adoption today. And we're also tackling the franchisor level of effort, because I think you talked a little bit earlier about how easy it is to implement Qvinci. So, all right, well, the third thing or the third must have is industry trust. Okay. And here is just a slide of just a few of the brands that are on Qvinci. I think right now we're 600 brands, 35,000 locations, syncing every night at Qvinci. And industry trust is important. You want to show people you've done it for lots of different other people. And however, our favorite client on there, of course, is Floor Covered International.
Thanks, Brad.
And so anyway, let's go to polling question number 5, and then we're going to wrap this up. Got a few things left to do, and then I think we'll wrap it up for the day. Polling question number 5. Would you like to explore how a collaborative automated data model could work for you and your franchise system? Yes, schedule a demo or assessment. Possibly, like more information. Not right now. And if you answer yes, we're not going to schedule a demo today. We're still going to have to schedule that, and I'll give you a way to do that later. But and the demo or the is free of charge. In fact, we have a really good special discount right now for new franchises that come on. Okay. All right. Well, we have some people that want it, and some people possibly. A lot of them not right now, but it gives us a job to do. So, but if you do want to come to Qvinci right now, we have a pretty good free trial, and also we have a pretty good like 80% off for the first 2 months, so you get you up and running, and prove that we could do what we say we can do. So, thank you very much. You can go ahead and close that up. Okay, let me go here. All right. Now, thank you, Ben, for a great explanation about the critical parts of a great franchise system. And we talked about, the need for near real-time homogeneous location data, role-based actionable insights, implementation, ease of use, Qvinci automation, and we did a live demo. Okay. And we started this thing off on why this is so very important for franchises. So now we're going to go to the next steps. Okay. Or first, actually, I'm sorry. We're going to go into the recap first. And the recap is what did we learn today? Okay. Well, we shifted that power dynamic. We learned how to move location data from corporate requirement to shared advantage, win-wins. We reduced franchisor friction. We learned that when a franchisee see value, asking for the data becomes natural, not uncomfortable. We created the franchisee pull. Adoption accelerates when franchisees thirst for the financial insights that improve their businesses. We talked about modern franchise leadership that aligns with today's partnership-driven franchise models, not command and control. And we talked about the direct ROI impact, how the collaboration adoption spreads coaching cycles and compounds brand-wide profitability. Okay, so that's what I think we learned today. So what are the next steps here? The next steps are a private demonstration. You're going to get a copy of this deck. This is going to be hot links. Just click the button. A calendar will open, and you can go schedule time at your convenience to schedule a private demonstration. You can go to another live product-focused webinars on different issues, or just visit our learning center. There's lots of learning material there. So now we have the Q&A session, and Ben, we have a couple of. We're not going to have time to get to all of the questions here, but here's an interesting one from our audience. It basically, one of our audience members asked, "What differentiates Qvinci from like mid-market accounting platforms? Why franchises like Floor Coverings do not just move to an ERP or a mid-market system? Why do they stay with Qvinci and QuickBooks?"
Yeah, it comes down to ease of use for the franchisee and also for the franchisor. It's other things can take a long time to implement or put in. This one's pretty plug and play for the amount of data that you can get out of it and also the overall cost. One of the things that when we were coming into this, when you have less people involved in it, it doesn't cost as much, right? Because it's a per user basis. So as you're scaling up, you can start to see that, your costs are going to scale with you, but ultimately when they're lower on the front, it makes it easier to put in because it's not going to be like, oh, I'm paying the same price as a 5,000 unit person, right? You're paying for where you are at that point in time. So for us, that was a great asset to get it built in and spooled up. And then as it grows with us, we've seen the value in the tool and continuing to advance it into our benchmarking and KPI work. So you don't get that with some of the other ones don't have the same API. The other ones don't have the same importing. They don't have the ease of use of trying to get it all connected. So that was a big part of it for us.
Yeah, it's important, and one of the things we're working on now, Ben, it's going to be out here pretty quickly. Probably May is our bi-directional API.
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to sync with basically any non-financial data, Intact, NetSuite. So when we go to a franchise, and some of the larger franchises like yours and others may have multi-entity Zs on a mid-market system. Well, it ain't going to matter. Qvinci is going to be accounting solution and data agnostic. Whatever the data is, we bring it in and we give it to you, because you're right. Most of these small business owners, number one, they don't want to move from QuickBooks because they're not going to be able to handle a mid-market. So keeping the simple accounting solutions that your franchisees know and love, I think is some value. Here's one. I'll take it. It goes, can one location see another location's data? How does the security work? No. You only can see what Ben and the franchisor line up in the permission. So if you own one location, you're going to see that location's data. If you own 5 locations, you're going to see all 5 of your locations' data. We have a pretty sophisticated permissions system that gets set up on the beginning. A big Ben, you were talking about that earlier about who can see what. And how has that been very useful to you? The permission system.
Yeah, because ultimately you don't want people to see what they don't you don't want them to see, essentially. In our world, it's this, you want people to see what they own, but we also have groupings, and one of the things we can do is create our own groups. So when we have momentum groups, we can show data to those momentum groups together so they only see their group. That's a big help for us because we don't want them to see someone else's momentum group as an example, but we also don't want them to be solo in the dark about what's going on their own.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Ben. It's been a great day today. I'm going to go over the appendix here in a minute. I put an appendix here. We got a whole list of buyer's guides, ROI guides, FAQ guides, all kinds of data. This is all hot linked, and you can go take a look at it just for if you want to learn more about Qvinci, but you don't want to take the next step. And then we also sell QuickBooks as well. So if you have a franchise and you need QuickBooks for your people, we can sell you QuickBooks, and we provide the customer success of QuickBooks as well. So this is in the document. We're not going to spend much time on it. So Ben, I just want to say thank you for showing up today and talking and giving your expertise to other franchisors in our industry, and maybe invite you to say some last words.
Yep. For those of you who are here, you're looking at it because you want to figure out what the reason and the value is to get your better financial data. It's a great tool. It's one of the best tools we've seen. There are competitors. This is the best one that I've seen and the one I use, obviously, because we've been with it for over 6 years. What I will tell you is always start with why. I'll end with that. When you're going to the franchisee, when you're leading through this process of data, you start with why you're doing it, and you be intellectually honest with them about why you're collecting the data. If you're doing it for compliance, they're going to see through that. The why needs to be about what they get out of it too. So make sure you're bringing that to the table, and you'll be really successful with it.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you to our audience who has sat with us for 59 minutes. And Sydney, we'll turn it back to you and wrap it up.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for your time. This is super insightful. I know the audience got a lot of helpful information. As I mentioned at the top of the webinar, this was recorded, and the recording and a link to the slide deck will be emailed out later on this evening. And if you have any questions for the speakers, you can feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you. But thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, Qvinci, for your sponsorship. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, and stay warm if you are about to experience some snow.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.